What is going on, guys? Joey Franzo here with Flex Training Systems, and I wanted to bring you guys what is hopefully relatively quick video discussing RPE and just talking about some stuff, especially with the deadlift. Well, it does apply to other lifts, but especially with the deadlift, that can help you, just kind of maybe understand certain things. And maybe you have a meet coming up and you want to hit all your attempts, and this can help you choose a little bit better. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I have podcast number 2 and number 3 already recorded. I'm almost done editing number 2. I didn't have to make too many edits, but that's going to go up 19 somewhere around the 21st, something like that. Yeah, so thank you guys for being patient, and let's get right into the video. So essentially, I wanted to make a quick note, talking about lower RPEs and why it's really important to pay attention to them and hit them if they are prescribed. There are, sometimes, especially with my girlfriend Tina, there are times when I'll put in like a 7 or a 6 or an 8, and she'll go over that. And one of the reasons why you really, especially if you're like getting into some volume, want to stick to those lower RPEs, because basically it's just going to keep you healthy and you're going to be able to handle more, overall work. So let's say you are given like a 5x5 at 6 on sumo deadlifts, and you end up going like RPE 8 like the first 3 sets. Your last 2 sets are probably going to be closer to 9. Sometimes it can get a little bit easier, but let's say you have to deadlift 2 days later. You're going to be smashed from overshooting your RPE, even though it's only a little bit and you probably had a decent session that first session. If you're doing any kind of frequency, the point of like hitting higher frequency is we're trying to stimulate growth. Without getting too specific, we're just trying to stimulate growth multiple times throughout the week. Every 48 to 72 hours, depending on the lifter, it can be more, it can be less. You can hit a lift again. So if you're overshooting earlier in the week, you're gonna, definitely screw yourself later in the week, and you can make what is supposed to be an effective, couple weeks of training turn into like one good day, and then like multiple rundown days where you just feel like shit. So stick to your RPs. If you see a 6 there, that's 4 reps in the tank. It's not too hard to gauge that. Some tips in terms of gauging: you complete a set, you can watch your video and think about how you felt and say, okay, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, X amount reps after that. After an RPE 5, it kind of gets hard to, gets a little fuzzy, but, or under an RPE 5. But, 4, 3, especially RPE 8 and 9 should be very straightforward and easy to gauge. You have to be honest with yourself. This is one of those things where it's good to be positive and talk positive, but not when you're trying to get better. And like if I'm there, like even if it's just me there, let's say you work with me and I'm telling you, like you send me a video and some people will be like, oh, I overshot, it was an 8.5, and I'll be like, nah man, that was like, you didn't have another rep, that was a definite 9.5, maybe even a 10. So gotta stay objective, stick to those lower RPEs. If it's there for a reason. There is definitely thought behind it. If your training is written with any kind of just intelligence, I guess I could say. Maybe you need 8s all the time. Maybe you're one of those people, you're a smaller lifter, you can get away with it and you never get hurt. Some people absolutely can do better with that stuff, but that's a very case-by-case thing. And then getting into kind of rating RPE and understanding I don't know why this has been coming up lately, but especially on the deadlift and with smaller lifters, right? So first off, with smaller lifters, them jumping, and I mean, you can only jump 2.5 kilos to 5 kilos, 7.5 kilos. That's 10, 12.5, 15, etc., etc. It goes by increments of 2.5. So for a smaller lifter, if your max on whatever lift is under 200 pounds, you jumping 7.5 kilos on the bench press is insane. It's a lot. It's really a lot. It'd be like me jumping 15 kilos on bench, which I've never done. I've literally never done that. I'm trying to think. At bench nationals, I opened 418 and jumped to 440, which was no, I jumped to 446. So that was 12.5, and that was like, I made weight at the last second. I was feeling absolutely horrible. I didn't want to bomb out, so I took a conservative opener. Ended up being fine and hit 463. But that was that one case where I was intentionally opening lower, but I have a relatively decent bench press. 12.5 kilos out of 210 kilos it's a small percentage. So if you're a smaller lifter and you're making those kind of jumps, your sticky point is going to sneak up on you despite, you're like, oh, I'm only jumping, 15 pounds. That's no big deal. Well, it's a greater percentage of your max, so your sticky is going to sneak up on you sooner. So maybe you should have only jumped 5, or maybe even 2.5, and you would have been fine. So just something to be aware of. And also, sometimes lifts, the higher you get to your max, they increase by an order of magnitude rather than linearly. So what the hell am I talking about? So let's say, you hit 300 pounds on a lift at an RPE of 8, right? So you would think like 315 might be closer to a 9. But what happens is, actually, I should probably use a better example. I use myself for example. So I can deadlift like, let's say 500 pounds with pretty much a flat back. People will tell me my technique looks good, blah, 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 blah. And it'll look like, it'll look fast. It'll look like an RPE 6, maybe a 5, even less than that. But as soon as I put 540 on there, like, I cannot scale, my rating of RPE, like, linearly based on, like, what I think 45 pounds is going to do. What I mean is, it's going to get exponentially harder. It's not just going to get harder. Like, you can't judge how 545 is going to be based on how 500 looks. Sometimes you can. But with someone like me, where my back will absolutely round with that amount of weight, absolutely, there's no way I can keep my back straight. It's something about that range. Maybe like 500, it starts to happen a little bit. But once I get into that 550 range, I just start rounding like crazy. And the difficulty of the lift off the ground might be a little bit easier, but my lockout becomes much harder. So what should be, like, if I rate 500, let's just for simplicity's sake say 500 at an 8, that 545 is going to be like a 9.5. You know what I mean? Because now I'm rounding, I'm having form breakdown. Maybe 470 would be or 570 would be a better example, but sometimes the difficulty of a lift doesn't scale. It doesn't scale like linearly, because you start to have form breakdown. You start to have all these other things that come into play. I'll use John Hack for as an example. His opening deadlifts always look like smoke shows. Like, he'll literally at nationals he pulled 661. It was like such a joke how fast it was. Go up to like, I think it was like 690-ish, a little bit harder, but not nearly as bad. Something about his third attempt, I think he just starts to round his back more. He gets out of position. A lot of different things happen. You can't jump. If you jump 10 kilos and go up 1 RPE, maybe you jump, 5 kilos and go up another RPE. If you jump 10 and 10, so 10 is 1 RPE, that increment that it would go up at that percentage, and then you jump the other 10, it doesn't go up 1, it goes up like 1.5 or 1.2, and then he ends up missing. it's just something to be aware of. Your RPE, like, so the takeaway from that section of the video is your RPE might not scale linearly, especially towards, those higher percentages. It's very dependent on the person, and their technique and some of the things that they run into. Also, if you're a smaller lifter, like, just especially on bench press, if you're lifting a small or a larger percentage of your body weight, and squats too, then basically all the lifts, but the deadlift is the one where you're planted in the floor, and you're kind of like levering yourself. So that's why you see those crazy, like, 733 deadlifts at 181. You can kind of get away with being smaller, but like on squat and bench press, the weight is like above you, and weight moves weight. So if you're smaller, maybe you can rep 500 pounds for 10, but you always struggle with anything over 600, even though 500 for 10, you should be over 6, for the most part. You guys know what I mean. So you just, something to be aware of. If you're in a competition, know that it's going to get exponentially harder the higher you get up there, unless you have like just perfect form and your form literally never breaks down at any point through in the lift. Then you can kind of, and there are some people like that. John Hack is like that on his squats. He doesn't have really any form breakdown. Everything is like very like up and down. There's no backgrounding. He doesn't dive bomb or anything like that. So it's very easy to call his squats. But then on deadlift, like, that sticky is going to come up on you quick. So even if his second attempt looks good, you have to, it's just something that comes with time. There's no way to predict it, right off the bat. If I'm handling a lifter, I've never seen them lift. Like, literally, I've never seen them lift ever. I might get caught. I might call a number and they might miss because of it, which I see it happen like literally most of the time. It's something that I'm aware of, but and hopefully those of you who care to learn this stuff are going to keep with you. But yeah, I just wanted to provide that perspective on RPE. This last part, which people don't really talk about, the first part, I'm sure you guys have heard a million times. But yeah, shorter video today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be on the lookout for podcast number 2 coming up soon. I'm having a lot of fun with them. I'm going to try to get lots of cool, interesting people on here to hopefully entertain you guys. Yep, talk to you guys in the next one.